is due to movement of electrons. The electrons are held very tightly, so electrons cannot move. Now, and they are good insulators also. Now think about it, that each of these sigma bond has a alternate pi bond also. We know, yeah, something like this. So now we have, the sigma bond and a pi bond also. And we know that pi bonds or pi electrons are not as tightly held as sigma bonds. So electrons can move. So, the conduction is possible in these kind of cases. So polyacetylene is a case which forms a case of conducting polymers. Formally, we can say that some polymers under certain conditions have electrical conductivities comparable to that of metallic conductors due to delocalized pi electrons, and such electrons are called conducting polymers. Now, examples of these conducting polymers are polyphenylene, polythiophene, polyphenylvanillin, and we can see that each of these polymers have conjugation, that is alternate pi and sigma bonds. Here also we have alternate pi and sigma bonds. Here sulfur has a lone pair of electrons, so which is also acting as a pi electrons, and polyphenylvanillin. Now I'm just going to get into a bit more detail of conducting polymers, which is like this, that now conjugated bonds do not have do not render polymeric material to be highly conductive. They are conductive, but they are not highly conductive. That means that the conductivity is not to the tune what metallic conductors have. So, if you have to make them conducting, then you need to enhance their conductivity. And how do you enhance the conductivity? You generate either free electrons or holes, as we do it in the case of semiconductors. Now, depending upon which kind of dopant you all know is something which actually contaminates it, right? So depending upon which kind of dopant you add, you get either p-type conductors or n-type conductors. Now let's get into the detail of what a p-type dopant is. So you have certain compounds which we call them as Lewis acids, and which are always looking for some electrons. We know about FeCl3, which is a Lewis acid, or maybe iodine vapors, or maybe iodine in CCl4. They all are Lewis acids. So if we have a polymer, let's say polyacetylene, and we expose it to iodine vapors, or we expose it to FeCl3, then what will happen, that it will take one of the electrons from the polymeric chain and a hole will be created there, something like this. So we call this as n-doped polymers. This is a chemical equation. By taking a polymer, adding a Lewis acid, and then you get a hole generated here. We call it radical cation, or we call it a hole. So something like this. And let us see the mechanism of conduction for p-doped polymers. So here is a case where we have a conjugated polymer, and after doping, it has a hole generated here. Now, when you apply current, or current, then what will happen, that this electron will move towards this side, and this hole will move here. And now again, in the next cycle, when this electron moves here, this hole moves here, and that's how the hole moves. So we know that movement of holes or electrons is known as the conduction. So the conduction increases. Now let us look at n-type polymers. Now obviously, in case of n-type n-doping, what happens is that instead of a Lewis acid, here we are adding a Lewis base. So when we add a Lewis base, something like, say, naphthyl radical anion, here is the equation. So here is a polyacetylene polymer, and we add a Lewis base, sodium naphthalamide, and when you add this electron is taken up by the polymer and it becomes negatively charged. Naphthalene in fact becomes very neutral, and an electron or a radical anion is generated, something like here. So once we have a radical, this is a journal conjugated polymer, and when you have uh, added an electron through naphthalamide, it is a electron generated. Now what happens is that this electron starts moving. This electron moves here. So this an extra electron comes here. So we have an electron generated here or a radical anion generated here. Now when this moves here and this electron moves here, we have a radical anion moving. So the radical anion keeps on moving. That means an electron is moving and the conduction starts happening. This is one thing. And then these conducting polymers have various applications. One, that once you have conducting polymers, that they have the potential to be replaced by metallic conductors. So the conducting polymers have replaced conventional metallic conductors due to their light weight and comparable conductivities in the electronic devices. The second thing is that the sensing has come a long way since the discovery of conducting polymers. Conducting polymers such as polypropylene, polypyrrole, polyaniline, polythiophene, and that their derivatives have application as gas sensors. And then in various PCBs, conducting polymers, coated polymers sheets for PCB are inexpensive and have better adhesive properties compared to metallic conductors coated with epoxy resins. We have a printed circuit board on which you have a tube made up of conducting polymer. You just keep on applying the tube, and the adhesive properties are much more better on printed circuit boards. Then in fact, they have replaced nickel cadmium cells with conducting polymers due to their capability to repeated oxidation and reduction of the conducting polymers. So since they can be repeatedly oxidized and reduced, so in rechargeable batteries they can be used. There are tremendous number of applications which cannot be listed here, but we have listed here or some of them. And then they have application in light emitting diodes and in display devices and whatnot. These are some of the applications of conducting polymers. In fact, long after their discovery, when their application became a day-to-day affair or available in day-to-day appliances, then these three scientists, Heger, McDermott, and Shirakawa got Nobel Prize in 2000, in the year 2000. So that was about conducting polymers. Now let us move to the next topic, which is inorganic polymers. So what are inorganic polymers? Most of the polymers have a backbone of carbon. We know about PVC, polyethylene, polypropylene, polystyrene. All these polymers have a backbone of carbon. These are general polymers. But what if the polymer in which backbone of carbon is replaced by silicon, phosphorus, or any other inorganic atom? These are called inorganic polymers. So how do they look like? They look like something like this. You have a silicon, and on silicon is attached some organic group, maybe hydroxy group here, and we call them polysilanes. And if we have silicon, oxygen, silicon, oxygen, silicon, oxygen, we call it polysiloxanes. And then we have polyphosphozenes. We have phosphorus attached to nitrogen, and then again phosphorus attached to nitrogen, double bond. So these are known as polyphosphozenes. So this is the general structure of inorganic polymers. And as far as why they were required and what are their properties or what are their uses, now they have properties different from organic polymers. Organic polymer, if you look here, are actually carbon and hydrogen, which makes them very good applications, but they are inflammable. Now these polymers with inorganic backbone are non-flammable. So that means wherever we require something which is resistant to fire, we can use inorganic polymers, then their flexibility is one of the things. Due to their flexibility, they have been used in various implants, in artificial implants. And the interesting thing is that they even have the flexibility at very low temperatures also. So this is one of another application they are into use. And the third one is their electrical conductivity. So inorganic polymers have this phosphorus always has electrons, so you know the electrical conductivity is there. Obviously this property is same as the conducting polymers, but here again they have good electrical conductivity. They can be used at certain places where organic polymers, or let's say flammable organic polymers cannot be used. These inorganic polymers can be used. So I have actually only this much of the work is for inorganic polymers. Now I am coming to a very important class of polymers which are still in the development but are very much required, and from environmental point of view, and you know what they are actually the biodegradable polymers. Now, in fact, let me start by the statement that all natural polymers are biodegradable. So what actually are natural polymers? Polymers produced in nature are called natural polymers. For example, proteins have monomer unit as amino acid. Starch and cellulose have glucose as monomer unit, and DNAs have nucleic acid as the monomer units. And we know that these are the polymers which are actually produced by living organisms, by plants, animals, bacteria. So these are called natural polymers. And one of the important thing about these natural polymers is that they are biodegradable. And how they are, why the natural polymers are biodegradable? Because nature, all natural polymers are biodegradable because nature has all the enzymes to degrade them. These enzymes, also called biocatalysts, are present in soil, in water, in living organisms. So you know, nature has made all these polymers, and nature has made a mechanism to degrade these polymers also. So that is why all natural polymers are biodegradable polymers. Now, I have a question to ask here. Now, the question is, how about synthetic polymers also being degraded by biocatalysts? Yeah, that. How about if I make a polymer synthetically, and that polymer can also be degraded by biocatalyst or an enzyme? So this is the same question here. Yes, this may be possible only if a synthetic polymer also has same chemical linkage as that of natural polymers, like esters or amide or a glycosidic bond. Let me go back and tell you that proteins have an amide bond, which we normally call as a peptide bond, and starch has and cellulose have a glycosidic linkage. Let's not get into the detailed structure of this. So yes, so you know, if we can make certain polymers with these kind of linkages, which has an ester linkage or an amide bond or a glycosidic bond, then definitely we will be moving towards biodegradable polymers. It's a long way to go towards biodegradable polymers. Some of the biodegradable polymers, you have heard about nylon 6,6. So here is a polymer which is called nylon 2,6, where we have a glycine and a amino acid with 5 carbon chains, and this is nylon 2,6, and this is actually, now this synthetic polymer has a peptide linkage that can be hydrolyzed by same enzyme that degrade a protein in the nature. So this is the linkage that can be broken down by same enzyme which degrades different proteins. So this becomes a biodegradable polymer. Similarly, and there is another polymer which has an ester linkage. This is an ester linkage, and the name of this polymer is poly 3-hydroxybutyrate co 3-hydroxyvalerate. Now this polymer has an ester linkage that can be hydrolyzed by living organisms, and products of hydrolysis further metabolized by soil microbes. Now, interestingly, there is another polymer called polylactic acid. Now, this polylactic acid, interestingly, is not a biodegradable polymer, but this is a degradable polymer. That means that it will not get biodegraded, but we'll have to make certain procedures so that the bond which is present in the between the monomer units of polylactic acid can be degraded. So this also is a not a biodegradable but a degradable polymer. Then let's summarize it overall. So the summary is like this, that biodegradable polymers are naturally biodegradable, like starch, cellulose, protein, DNA, polyhydroxyalkylanoates. These are the polymers which are natural, and we don't have to put any effort to synthesize them. They are actually being produced over the millions of years by nature. But synthetic biodegradable polymers are the ones that we have now recently started synthesizing on an industrial scale. Now, amongst this, nylon 2, nylon 6, PBHV, polylactic acid, are some of the examples. Now, how they are going to help us? We know that application wise, if I say biodegradable polymers, I don't need to tell that they have applications. In fact, they have the potential to replace all available polymers on this earth and keep our environment, make our environment clean. And the second application, food packaging industry. Now, if we make a single-use disposable materials like your disposable glasses, disposable plates, if you make it out of synthetically biodegradable polymers, they will degrade themselves automatically. So this is another application of this. And third is, sometimes we require certain medicines, and these medicines have to be released very slowly into our body over a period of 12 hours. So, medical applications, these are actually used in slow release of medicines and in hygiene products. So that, you just have a polymer film, and that polymer film will automatically get degraded over a period of time, and your instrument will become automatically clean. So something like in hygiene products. Yes, that was about all of this lecture. This is my first lecture, so even if it is not my first lecture, I will be looking for your feedback. If you have any feedback about the lecture, please shoot me a mail on classofmnc@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to improve this lecture over a period of time. I am thankful to all my faculty colleagues who are involved in this course in this semester for their feedback to prepare the content of this resource. And in the end, I would like to say, somehow the problem, okay, yeah. In the end, I would like to say, thank you to all of you. Thank you.